What the fuck was that? Props. Quality. Like, subscribe. The second place winner in the manga poll is getting its first read through, and it's almost exactly what I expected while still being... I had pretty much no expectations going into this due to the fact that I was having people telling me it's the greatest thing ever and a significant number of people telling me it was severely overhyped. So that kind of averaged out to me just tamping it on down and coming in fresh. Fresh as a perfectly ripe avocado with no bruises that you put a little salt on, maybe a little basil, parsley, I don't know, whatever you do to make your avocado special. Let's go ahead and start the read through. I don't know how to start that smoothly, so we're just gonna do that now. Chainsaw Man starts off with us meeting a boy named Denji and his dog Pochita? Pochita? I'm gonna go with Pochita. This is no regular dog, it's a devil dog with a chainsaw face. It's three things. And we learn that Denji not only is in an incredible amount of debt to some criminal people, but he is a devil hunter for these people. He goes and kills the devils that they find for him, and then they cut huge amounts of money from the money he would normally earn and pocket it themselves. Sadly enough though, it's not even Denji's debt he's paying off, it's his father's. In fact, his life is so shitty that after he goes and kills a devil on this day, he goes home after being mocked and paid to eat a cigarette to eating just plain slices of bread for his meal. Yummy. And he dreams of one day being able to put jam on it. And his dreams also involve going out with a girl. And he just wants a hug before he dies. That's a big ask though, man. Aim lower. We then even get a flashback of his father's funeral, and he's standing in the rain at the gravestone, and the mafioso yells out that he better have 700,000 yen by tomorrow, otherwise it's his head. During this time, Denji actually comes across Pochito and sees that he's injured and lets the devil drink his blood so it can heal, and that bonds the two. And then they become BFFs, and Pochito helps him kill devils. Yay, establishment, done very efficiently if I do say so myself. Cutting back to modern times though, Denji's having trouble getting to sleep, so he's daydreaming about what he would like to dream about. This guy's life is sad. But then his attempts to sleep are interrupted, not even his sleep interrupted, good God, by the mafiosos showing up and saying, "We gotta freshen! Come on, boy!" But when he goes into this warehouse where reportedly a devil is, we have the mafioso saying he's a good boy who always follows orders like a dog. But he is then betrayed, and it turns out the people he works for are now being consumed by the zombie devil, which its power is to control people it infects. And we get some dialogue that to me does come across translated not the best, because it's literally the zombie devil going, "I am the zombie devil, which means I make people into zombies." Or maybe that's just the trope of shonen that like people exposit in this way, but my expectations for smooth exposition are falling rapidly. And a now wounded from a stab in the back Denji runs and tries to hide from this, but he is overwhelmed by the zombie horde, cut into pieces, and him and Pochita are dumped in a dumpster. So not only is our main character killed in the first stretch of Chainsaw Man, but his devil dog is mortally wounded as well. And as Pochita is dying, we actually get a flashback to when him and Denji were out cutting some trees for money, because, you know, when you have a chainsaw dog, you might as well cut some trees. And Denji explicitly told Pochita, like, "Hey, if I ever die, I've heard some devils can take over people's bodies. I don't want you being killed by some hunter. You could take over my body." And Pochita does this, but it actually brings Denji back to life. It's not Pochita's sentience taking over the body. It is Pochita giving their life so that Denji can come back to life with his heart, with the dog's heart, the chainsaw dog's heart. So now he's a chainsaw man dog heart thing, devil. And we see Denji comes back to life, and he sees Pochita on his stomach, and Pochita says, "I give you my heart, and in exchange, you let me see your dreams." But this is like a metaphor for like, now you need to live your dream life because I'm giving you my heart. And this is where things kick into high gear, because Denji bursts from the dumpster his mangled corpse was thrown into and sees all the zombies like turn back and go, "He's still alive." And then the devil zombie's like, "Oh, eat him, that way he can't come back." So the zombies descend once again. Denji has a string coming from his chest now though, so he pulls the string and dun-da-da-dun, Chainsaw Man! And Denji does successfully just wipe out the zombie devil and all of the zombies it created. And I was a little confused on what exactly these devils were at this point, but I'll go ahead and clarify for anyone who hasn't read. The devils essentially can be a blank devil whatever. Like, the blank can be anything. We even see later on there's a sea cucumber devil, and their power is apparently, at least from what is directly stated in the text here a bit later on, the more people fear that thing, the more powerful that devil is. And now Denji is part man, part devil dog, part chainsaw dog man, part sad boy. But as Denji is standing in the field of corpses he has taken out, we see 3 people arrive in government official looking attire. And as he is about to collapse, he actually yells out, "Hold me," and a girl who is with them catches him and gives him a hug. Denji got his hug. Apparently you can shoot for the stars, bud. I learned something here today. But this hug shocks him to the point where the chainsaw parts of him retract inward and he comes back into his human form. And then this woman observes, "Oh my god, you're a human." And wanting to figure out what exactly Denji is, or at least having somewhat of an understanding of what he is, and he definitely is kind of like a special case, she invites him to go get breakfast with her.
After basically saying, "Be my pet or I'll kill you."
And she starts showing Denji some kindness, giving him her coat and saying she'll buy whatever food he wants, which of course the guy who's just been eating bread for a long time is fucking flooring. And he like immediately falls in love with her, which if it was kept at this point where it's just someone who's never been treated kindly is treated kindly by a woman and falls in love with her, yeah, I would be fine with that. It ruins it a little bit in a bit, we'll get to that, but at this point I was like, I'm in for this. I get this setup. It was done really quickly, but I like that we had this just boom, boom, boom. This is what Chainsaw Man is, go. And I think that was well done. And I actually did like this next step as well, because it turns out this woman is not so nice. And when at this diner they arrive at, they hear of a devil taking a little girl, she tells Denji, "Hey, you go off and take care of that." And he's like, I'm hungry. Her response is, "Hey, a good dog says woof or yes, go. And bad dogs get euthanized." And that is an escalation. But fitting into the characterization we got earlier, Denji does just say yes and go off to do his devil killing. And he comes across this little girl playing with the devil, reflecting obviously his relationship with Pochita, who he just had a beat of being like, oh my god, I just remember Pochita's not really alive anymore. So he's immediately sympathetic with this girl who seems to have made a devil friend. And he even offers to her, once he gets appraised of the situation, of like, oh, y'all are cool. Do you want to run away together? Like, we can all just get out because I think that might be better. And he's like, I'm free of my debt, kind of technically now, so that'd be great. But it turns out to be a lie. This is the muscle devil, and it's actually controlling the little girl. Fight ensues. He frees the little girl from the devil's control and brings her back safely. But it does give us a little insight of like, there is some rebellion in Denji, and he doesn't love being treated this way, even though it's kind of lining up with how he's always been treated. And a firm limitation of Denji's power is also inserted here, where when he turns into Chainsaw Man, he apparently also loses quite a bit of blood and becomes faint. And when Denji is finally allowed to sit down and eat, he's kind of humiliated by this woman, but he does learn her name is Makima. And she very easily and clearly manipulates him, because when he asks her like, who you into? She's like, possibly you. She's just manipulating an easy target. And it's pretty clear at this point that Denji is so stunted socially and everything else by his upbringing, what he's been through, that he has no idea that this is happening to him. He's completely naive. And that's an interesting little position that is efficiently set up. We're only this far in and we've gotten all of that established. It's not exactly what I'd call smooth, but it is efficient. She then takes him to an office building, gives Denji a uniform, and pairs him with a guy to go out on a devil hunt. Let me see if I can get my dyslexia through this. This is gonna be a hard one for dyslexia. Akiheakawa. I think I got that.
He did not.
But the reason he's paired up with this guy is basically to have a bit of a test to see if he can make the team this guy runs. Problem is, this guy takes Denji into an alley and starts beating the piss out of him and saying, you got into this for the wrong reasons. You only got into this because you like Makima. Denji gets up, starts viciously attacking this man's groin, and responds, today I ate udon for the first time, and had a hot dog too. It's the first time I got treated like a person, the first time I got treated to a meal. To me, this is like living a dream. Maybe I became a devil hunter for a really shallow reason, but I'm willing to die to keep living like this. The guy stands back up and continues his fight with Denji, but collapses due to the severe crotchal injuries that Denji inflicted on him, and then they are taken back to the office. Not smooth, but efficient. That seems to be the whole mentality for the setup and beginning part of Chainsaw Man. Makima asks if they think this pairing will work, and they both answer absolutely not.
What? Correction. Denji actually says no problemo in that scene, which does indeed make it funnier.
But they both essentially get told, tough, you're gonna be on that team. And also Makima explains to the team lead why Denji's being brought in. It's due to his Chainsaw Man powers, which apparently combining with a devil in such a way is so rare it doesn't even have a name. Though the continued usages of threats to keep Denji in line though is really hammered home with the line, if Denji ever quits or disobeys order, he'll be put down as a devil. And when Denji asks, what does that mean? Makima answers, it means we'll be working together until death do us part.
So you're probably thinking at this point, Daniel, why do your words not match what's on the page? And the reason for that is there appears to be two different translations available of this comic, the physical kind I have versus the digital scans I'm using for editing, and that's the reason. That's why.
We get a little bit of Denji working in an apartment, but cutting forward to the next part that's like significant to the story, he is called out on a mission with his new partner to take down a fiend. A fiend is apparently when a devil takes over a person and is then in control of their brain, I believe. And so Denji's not one because his head is still his own. And so it's just the heart that's been swapped, not the brain area. Denji kills this fiend though with one clean blow, giving it a rather painless death, and when his partner asks, hey, why didn't you turn into Chainsaw Man? Denji answers like, I wanted to give him a quick painless death, I didn't want to like drag it out, but we find out that's actually a lie after his partner gives his backstory about watching his family be murdered by devils in front of him, and that's why he's actually like, why didn't you give him a painful death? But the reason Denji didn't actually do it is so he could pick up porno mags.
What, are you gonna go to the cops and tell them?
That's why I'm talking to you about it now.
Adam.
I'm not a snitch.
And then Denji starts wondering why this life, while it is the life he once dreamed of, isn't feeling like it's making him fulfilled. And then he decides that's because his ultimate goal is to touch boobs. But the next day at the office, Denji can't keep going out with the head of this team he's a part of apparently, so instead he's given a new buddy, who is actually a fiend, I believe, but a fiend that's under control and works for this government entity, the Public Safety Devil Hunter Group. Her name is Power, and she looks like a person aside from some devil horns coming up top. She does not behave like a person, she absolutely behaves like what we've seen these devils behave like. In fact, she seems pretty bloodthirsty, and while they do get the attention of some police while they're out, Denji's able to show a badge he has now to be like, hey, yes, she's a fiend, I'm weird, but we're a part of this government institution, so they're allowed to go. And despite Power apparently having like such a presence that she can scare off devils, they do eventually come close enough to smell the blood, or she smells the blood, to be drawn to an active devil attack. And this is the Sea Cucumber Devil, which Power destroys with one gargantuan hammer blow because her power is to cut herself and grow gigantic hammers from her blood, which is actually pretty f***ing dope. She takes it out in one hit, but apparently that's a bad thing because the civilian devil hunters were already there, and government devil hunters aren't allowed to interfere once the civilian ones show up, and they should be arrested, but they're not because connections. But in a character beat, we see this fiend, Power, just starts accusing Denji of like being completely at fault here, and it's like, it's his fault, he's the one who told me to kill it, and Denji's like, no, you're a liar, and they descend into this very juvenile back and forth that is eventually shut down by just saying like, all I want is results, I don't care who lied. We then see the two of them in a shop, and a cat approaches Power, and Power starts talking about how she used to have a cat and she misses it so much and she just wants to get it back, it might be alive, and Denji starts being like, that's dumb. Denji just tells her his ultimate goal, well, hers is getting her cat back, his is to touch boobs, and she tells him that he can touch her boobs if he helps her get her cat back. Okay. From there we see they're taking a train ride to apparently wherever her cat was last seen, And Denji actually starts telling her about what happened with Pochita, and she says, that's dumb, Pochita's definitely dead. And Denji's like, I really do not like you. And I'm like, yeah, Denji, I don't like her either. I also don't like you. Before they get there though, we cut to like government official council people, and we see Makima is in front of this board, and she is telling them about how she has this special unit with these two people. One's a fiend, one is Denji in his condition. And here's where we get the exposition about how the more a devil is feared, the more powerful it becomes, and because he has chainsaws, she's hoping that could result in something big. And I've seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so yeah, that could be a big fear. But as we cut back to Denji and Power, they are approaching this farmhouse type looking structure, and Power accidentally slips up saying like, oh yeah, that was my story. And Denji's like, your story? And then she clearly betrays him and drags him into this house where there's a gargantuan bat devil that's wounded, and apparently Power agreed to bring this bat human blood so they could drink human blood and heal before going back into the city to hunt and things. They were wounded and didn't want to risk more damage, I assume. And so I'm just confused. Apparently Power went and got this government job just so she could come in contact with a human and lure it back here? Or was she already in the government job when this happened? We're about to see in a flashback, because, you know, a lot of flashbacks in here. But the devil, as devils seem to be being established within this series, are liars, because she's a fiend, she lied, this is a bat devil, it's lying. It just eats the cat in front of her and is like, haha, because the blood was bad. Apparently Denji's blood tasted bad. But in this flashback, we see Power is sitting atop a dead bear. And because she's naked, I'm assuming she's not a part of any government institution, she's just a fiend out in the world acting as a fiend. And she finds this cat where she's like, I want to fatten you up before I eat you, but then the cat is a cat, so she falls in love with it. And that's pretty much the relationship with most cat owners and their cats, where at first they're like, you're a dick, and then the cat nuzzles you a couple times and you're like, I love you, and the cat scratches you. This is gonna be a complicated relationship in my life. So yes, it seems this fiend went and got human blood by getting a job. And I guess from fiend logic, that makes sense. I'm having a hard time buying into this world, but I'll buy into that. All right, they're not smart, so that was the best way you could think of getting human blood. But before this big bat demon picks up Power and eats her, she looks at the wounded Denji who's been squeezed for blood and goes, now I get how you must have felt when Pochita died. This is awful. This sucks. And then she's picked up by Bat Devil, and then the last thing we see in this volume is the bat flies off towards the city, wanting to inflict great harm, but he looks down surprised to see Denji grabbing on tightly to his legs, and Denji says, gimme back my boobs, pulling his chainsaw string. And then we get one final flash of like Denji realizing how alone Power must have been after losing her cat, because of how alone he feels after losing Pochita. Those are very different circumstances, my guy, but okay, you're a sympathetic individual. And that is where volume 1 of Chainsaw Man ends. I will not make the same mistake I have made with mangas before and reading one volume before giving any intense thoughts or judgment. From what I understand, that is like reading a chapter of a book and trying to give a full judgment of that book. So I'm going to put this down and say come back next week when I do the same for volume 2, and I'll keep layering in some criticism, some praise here and there. But I don't have enough to go off of yet to give solid thoughts, aside from a very solid... What?